one
Now
main
that 2 minutes has become 15 minutes. I thought.
because your lordships will grant me 15 minutes if possible, that I'll complete the points in that. I will not take more than 15 by that block. I'll not take your lordships to any of the documents I intended to. I'll just place the point. The point is there in the written submission. Plus, the main point I want to address your lordships, and there's two subparts, is that what is the interest of central government in controlling the services of a union territory of Delhi? And my respectful submission is there is none. Because really speaking, what the central government is seeking in this matter is, it's a kind of argument of red herring. Plus, my government's, the civil servant who's functioning in my government, his ability to function is limited by the competence of the government itself. Because whatever I can do in my constitutional competence, that is exactly what the civil servant can do. Because he can't go beyond that competence of the government. Your lordships will strike it down, the courts will strike it down. So, what is the real interest, if any at all? And my respectful submission is there is none of the central government in controlling day to day the civil servants who are serving in the government of NCT of Delhi or denying the entry 41. Because in that respect, two aspects I want to place before your lordships. One is, what is the experience of global capitals across the world? Because there are three different ones. There is a 2009 book. Your lordships will have the supplementary written submissions which we have placed. Plus para 9 onwards. I'm not going to read. I'm just going to place the point. Well, there are three different kinds of capitals. There's a book of 2009. That's the latest book we could find on a comparison on federal capitals across the world, their governance structure. The learned SGS filed something from 1970. Well, what does that say? Well, there are three categories broadly. One category is where there is a federated district. The capital is a federated district of the union. District, I use the term in a loose sense. It is the federated territory of the union. In that, for instance, there will be Abuja in Nigeria, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, the African states are there. There are certain Washington DC in the US will also fall.
What is the paradigm there that the capital is a
federal district? That is, it's a federal district.
Like Washington DC.
Yeah.
Like DC. And I've given 5 other examples. That is category 1. Within that category also, there is a huge play of things in each of those categories. I'll come to that in a moment. Plus, category 2 is where the capital is a completely federated unit. That is an independent federated unit, and that's the capital. Berlin for Germany, and Brussels in the case of Belgium. The third category, your lordships, is where the capital is in the province of a full-fledged state. The capital city is in the province of a full-fledged state. So if Delhi were in Uttar Pradesh, if Delhi were...
Capital is in the
province of a state.
Is it in the province of
a state? Ottawa, in Canada, is in the province of Ontario. And if there is a fourth category, really South Africa, it doesn't formally have a capital. Well, all the South African constitution says the parliament will be in Johannesburg. There's no formal capital. The executive government is in Pretoria, and the constitutional court is the constitutional court is in Johannesburg. The parliament is in Cape Town, and the executive government is in Pretoria. There is no formal capital. But if we look at the divergence of administrative structures in all of them, there are three things which stand out. One is the area of competence given to the local government. Second is there a legislative override? That is, a central legislature overrides the local legislature. Third is there an executive override? Does the central executive override the local executive? There is a range of combinations. So, at the most federated level is something like Berlin, which is very high degree of competence. The width of the competence area is broad. No legislative override, no executive override. And the other end of the spectrum is very narrow competence. Legislative override, executive override. But in none of them, and that's important for our case, none of them, the services in the local government are sought to be controlled by the center. In none of them, across the board, irrespective of the combination of these three factors, that within the area of competence, the federal government seeks to say, I will control your officers. It just doesn't happen. Then, my lords, there is an example of London. My lords, like your lordship is aware, London, my lords, is the most centralized democracy, not just possibly in the Western world, but in the world. Similar to Article 39 AA, in 1999, they enacted a Greater London Authority Act 1999. They established a Greater London Authority. That, my lords, established a directly elected assembly, 25 members of the assembly, and a mayor. Because there have been 3 mayors in London till now: Ken Livingstone, Boris Johnson, who then became the Prime Minister, and presently is a gentleman called Sadiq Khan. Because interestingly, it's a little similar. When Boris Johnson was the mayor, the Labour government was in power in the centre. And Mullahs, today Sadiq Khan is from Labour and the Tories are in power. So Mullahs, but there, section 67 and 70, Lordships will just make a note, it's there in my written submission. The power to appoint the staff, to set their conditions of service, everything is with the authority. Why should us have a central government have any interest in that? And Mullahs, this is not even a federated system. The first line was the examples I gave were federated systems. UK is not even a federation. Because their House of Lords is not like our Rajya Sabha, which represents state interests. The House of Lords is a bunch of peers which are appointed to a certain process, but there's no federal interest. But even in a country where there's no federal interest, the management of the capital at a local level, there's no interest of the central government in controlling the services of that. And Mullahs, finally, I will come, Mullahs, to our own Delhi Municipal Corporation Act, and that, Mullahs, I'd like to just place the sections. Mullahs, the MCD Act, which has been enacted by the Parliament, Mullahs, para 16 of my supplementary written submissions, if your lordships will have. Mullahs, section 89 and 90 of the MCD Act give the power to appoint. Mullahs, section 89 is for important posts. Your lordships will just make a note of it. For important certain designated posts, the power is with the corporation itself. That is with the elected arm. Corporation is the elected arm. And under section 89, the power is with the corporation itself.
Yes.
To appoint certain important people to certain important posts. Under section 90, the standing committee, which is the elected sub-body of the corporation, approves different posts. Under section 90, they approve different posts for the corporation, and in pursuance of that approval, then the commissioner makes the actual appointment. So there is complete elected arm control under the MCD Act. Because surely a parliamentary form of democracy with a Westminster style system with federalism in play, we can't be worse off than the Municipal Corporation of Delhi.
So the power to appoint is again there, not given to the center, but.
That's right. And Mullahs, insofar as any concern, well, I possibly cannot see any concern of the union in the day-to-day administration of the government of Delhi. And your lordships will test this, because all matters of federalism which has come before this court are in the context of 2 different political parties. That's been the jurisprudence in 70s. Before that, because one party ruled, we didn't even have cases before this court. Because your lordships will give a construction which will bear the weight of competing priorities by 2 different political parties.
Right. Anything else, Mr. Farad?
So, Mullahs, finally, if there is a concern, if at all, once services come in the remit, if there is at all a concern, Mullahs, that can be taken care of by Article 239 AA4 proviso, the power of reference. Your lordships have already held that in cases of extreme importance, the matter can be referred to the president and the president's decision is binding. The same will apply in case of services. So we are not in a position to damage any interest of the union. Like Dr. Singhvi said, we are just protecting our house. It's already circumscribed for us, but can we even function within our house? So I'll just conclude my submission with that your lordships will grant us entry 41, both as a for the purpose of legislation and executive, and the power to transfer and post officials who may belong to central service, who as per their own rules we are entitled to. And there is no concern of the central government in interfering in day-to-day affairs of our. But I'm extremely grateful for that.
No, 1 minute. What do you mean by legislative power with respect to entry? Because it's a cadre post, correct? The services are allocated to the Delhi government, Correct?
Yes.
There is a question of legislature, what to be legislated?
So, my lords, the impugn notification does.
Because so far as the education, qualification, everything, mode of appointment, you can't have. Then what type of legislative power you want?
So, my lords, may I attempt to answer?
Yeah.
My lords, the impugn notification does two things. It says I don't have entry 41 available to in my legislature. It does that first. So, my lords, we need that even for creating a post. Because your lordship is right. Certain posts, the top post will always be cadre post. In a principal secretary in a department will be a cadre post, will be all India service person. And that's why we showed to your lordship those rules. That even vis-a-vis him, we have the power to post within. But for everything else, for creating posts, if I'm creating a hospital, a health service, I need to create posts for that. Can my legislature pass that act? It can. And I need entry 41 for that. What does the impugn notification say? I can't because I don't have entry 41.
But tell us something in the Delhi government hospitals, for instance.
Yes, ma'am.
You already have Delhi government hospitals. You have Delhi government schools. What about the ministerial posts? Like who has legislated? Who sanctions the post? Who appoints?
Well, so post 2015, we have been earlier, Malats, there was what the way it used to happen was the ministers concerned would do it, and the matter will go up to the LG in the normal mechanism as a matter of communication. Now what happens? We have no play. The situation is so bad that the Speaker of the Assembly cannot even appoint a secretary in his own office.
Actually, factual assertions may be confined to.
I'm responding to a question from the court.
Yeah.
The actual assertion we confine to.
No, but for instance, in your just as a matter of clarification, in any Delhi government hospital, you would have n number of posts. Who has sanctioned those posts in the past? They were sanctioned by the Delhi government.
So, Malaj, there is a certain level of what has happened is there is a certain level of ossification in time which has happened post 2015. I am not in a position to create more posts. Whatever had been already done. Now it's the LG doing it his. If at all we request him, if it's created, if it is not created, all of that is happening. But whatever was there pre-2015 is continuing.
Let me very quickly ask a direct question. After all, 239 AA has been there from 1992. There have been at least 3 governments or 4 governments of NCT between that time and now. So, well, it's not the law has changed. Let's be very frank. Well, the law has not changed. The harmony of working has changed, which is why do you have litigation? Why do you not?
Always.
Today, what your lordship is asking is, the correct answer is this, that the posts were created long ago. Please look at the last 2-3 years. Any post is created, transferred, appointed, can't be. Because how long can we keep on arguing on letters that the actual bus will be gone, the person will be dead, the patient will not be required, COVID will be gone. We can't argue on these things. So it needs clarity only from a Supreme Court. Otherwise, we can keep on having.
To say, my learned may not say that.
No, but I have to say something. I can't speak here, We are not living in the Antariksh. We are living in Delhi.
Thank you.
Context.
Thank you, Mr. Farah.
Grateful.
Thank you.